A very good evening to everyone. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fine and enjoying these pathomorphology sessions. Hope they are helpful for you. So today we are going to talk about the circulatory disturbance topic. So let's start with the question number 22. So in this particular question they are talking about a hemorrhagic stroke patient. Okay, so the patient is having a hemorrhagic stroke caused a cerebral cyst of a patient. Okay, in 2 years he died of the post-influenza virus pneumonia. So he was having some kind of influenza virus in the history, and he died because of that. And autopsy has shown a cerebral cavity with wall of rusty pale color. Okay, that's important for us, rusty pale color, and pulse test is positive. If you have watched my very first video of the session, or the second video of this playlist, you must have noticed that I have talked about the hemosiderosis, and over there I told you about the pulse test, right? If I told you that if pulse test is positive, that is indication for the hemosiderosis. Okay, so we have already talked about that kind of question, that if the pulse test is positive, then it will be hemosiderosis. Okay, again in this question they are saying the pulse test is positive, but that it is a finding, or it is an indication for the hemosiderosis, but you should know the further types of the hemosiderosis as well. Okay, one more thing, hemosiderosis, I told you in the pigment section, right? We have already discussed about the physiological and pathological pigments. The people who are watching this first time, this is the third part of this whole playlist. I suggest you to watch my previous 2 videos in this playlist and then come back to this video for further clarification in this question, right? So in this particular question, what they are saying, let me summarize that hemorrhagic stroke caused a cerebral cyst of this patient. He was having the history of the influenza virus. Due to that, he died actually. In the autopsy, cerebral cavity is showing the rusty pale color. Okay, that is the question. And pulse test is positive. We know if the pulse test is positive, it's gonna be hemosiderosis. Now let's talk about some types of the hemosiderosis. Fine, so let's talk about the types of the hemosiderosis. So hemosiderosis is basically having 2 types. Okay, so one is local hemosiderosis and another one is the visceral hemosiderosis. Fine, once again I would like to tell you that the notes I will provide in the description box below. Whoever wants to make their own notes, they can pause the video and they can make their own notes, or whoever wants to see the notes, they will be available in the description box. Anyways, so local hemosiderosis, look, first of all you should know the basic difference. Okay, this will be seen in the internal hemorrhage cases. Okay, internal hemorrhage cases. Here, which kind of hemolysis will be seen in the patients? Here, extravascular hemolysis, very important. Extravascular hemolysis is seen. Okay, extravascular hemolysis will be seen over here. Fine. Most common location. Look, it occurs regularly it occurs around the areas of bruising or the hemorrhages. Okay, so where is the location? Bruising and hemorrhages. Okay, note it down in your notebook as well. Then a very classical example I would like to tell you over here. In the classes also I have already discussed about this one, that whenever the patient is having the heart failure, so what happens is that the heart is not compatible with the blood circulation. So whatever amount of blood is present over there, extra amount of blood starts to leak back into the lungs, into the pulmonary circulation, and then some kind of RBCs, right? Some kind of RBCs can be seen in the lungs, right? And over there in the lungs, we are having the macrophages, and they will try to engulf those RBCs, right? So whenever we are seeing those macrophages, they will be having the RBCs inside them, and we are calling them as heart failure cells, isn't it? We are calling them as heart failure cells, and those macrophages we are calling them as siderophages, right? So what example just I told you. Okay, so that they are actually the hemosiderin. Okay, because as we are talking about the hemosiderin over here, hemosiderin laden macrophages, right? Okay, and what other name you know about them. They are also called as siderophages. They're also called as siderophages, right? Okay, now they can also be called as heart failure cells, right? They can also be called as heart failure cells. Okay, done. Let's talk about the visceral hemosiderosis now. Look, visceral can also be called as systemic hemosiderosis. Okay, remember first one was the local hemosiderosis. Okay, that will be present locally. Here I am talking about the visceral one. Visceral means inside. Systemic circulation will be disturbed over here, so this is also called as systemic hemosiderosis, right? For example, this question was about the local hemosiderosis, the that one which we were talking about. We'll be discussing about that. Now question may come from the visceral hemosiderosis as well, right? So let's talk about that. In the visceral one, what happens is, first of all, it is the example of intravascular hemolysis, right? It is an example of intravascular hemolysis, and local one was the example for the extravascular hemolysis, right? What are the locations over here? Sometimes it can be seen in the liver or spleen, or it can present in the kidneys as well in cases of hemolytic anemia, right? So I would like to write over here that liver, spleen, kidneys can be the location as far as visceral one is concerned. Okay, then this pigment actually imparts a deep brown color, okay, deep brown color to the tissues and organs whenever it is present in high concentration. So okay, so that is also the point to be considered over here in the visceral one. So deep brown color can be imparted. Okay, deep brown color can be imparted. Then what can be other situations? Alcohol ingestion, alcohol ingestion whenever the person is taking the extreme, okay, pack after one and another. So in those cases, alcohol ingestion can also lead to hemosiderosis. Which kind of hemosiderosis it can lead to? Definitely it can lead to visceral hemosiderosis. Okay, so alcohol ingestion can be the classical example. Alcohol ingestion, okay, excess I am talking about. Okay, excess alcohol ingestion can lead to the visceral hemosiderosis. Okay, so this one you should remember at least as far as hemosiderosis is concerned. So I have talked about the local and the visceral one. Okay, you can pause the video and write your own notes. Okay, now let's go back to the question. So they were talking about the hemorrhagic stroke, and you know what they have talked about over here? Rusty pale color. Okay, they have talked about the rusty pale color over here. And rusty pale color, when it will be seen in the local hemosiderosis, because look, whenever this is the case of internal hemorrhage, isn't it? I told you in the local hemosiderosis that internal hemorrhage can be seen over there. And what happens in internal hemorrhage? Look, in the hemorrhagic stroke, what happens? Blood will be spilling out of the blood circulation and will be invading the tissues of the cerebrum, right? Whenever the RBCs, those broken RBCs, they will be coming into the tissues. This is not the proper location of the RBCs, right? So how they will look like? Rusty pale color. How they will look like? They will be imparting the rusty pale color. Okay, so one more thing, I told you about the which kind of hemolysis which was happening in the local hemosiderosis. That was the extravascular. Extra means outside the vessel, isn't it? And whereas visceral siderosis, it was inside the vessel, intravascular, right? That's why we were calling that as systemic. So this one is local hemosiderosis because this is outside the vessel. Local hemosiderosis, extravascular hemolysis, that's why it is imparting the rusty pale color. Visceral hemosiderosis, I told you, that was imparting the deep brown color. That is the difference. Fine, so that's why our answer goes in the favor of local hemosiderosis. Local hemosiderosis. Okay, I hope this one is clear. Fine, let's move on to the next one. 23. A patient who had ischemic disease and recurrent myocardial infarction died because of progressive cardiovascular collapse. So they are talking about the MI. Died because of progressive cardiovascular collapse. Okay, autopsy has shown an enlarged solid spleen of dark cherry color. Okay, very important for us, dark cherry color on the cut surface. Microscopically, I told you already, macroscopic and microscopic findings are important for us. Microscopically, pulp sclerosis and follicles atrophy, they were detected. Pulp sclerosis and follicles atrophy, they are detected. So what term can we use to name the changes? You need to pick up some points to get your diagnosis over here, that which kind of problem it it is, right? First thing is very, very clear. They are talking about the spleen, that this enlarged solid spleen, it is having the dark cherry color on the cutting surface, because they are talking, obviously the person has been dead already and he's having the autopsy right now, right? Now this is the case of congestive splenomegaly. Okay, what I am talking about over here, this is the case of what? This is the case of congestive splenomegaly. Okay, congestive splenomegaly. Now you must be surprising that this is not in the option, congestive splenomegaly. So congestive splenomegaly is the other name for the cyanotic induration of spleen, or you can say it can also be called as cyanotic induration of spleen. Okay, cyanotic induration of spleen. Now what am I talking about, that congestive splenomegaly? What actually happens? Look, usually congestive, you know the meaning of congestive, congestion is happening in the spleen, and that's why spleen is getting bigger and bigger, and we are calling that as splenomegaly. Okay, why the congestion is happening? Due to that congestion, the spleen is giving the color of dark cherry color on the cut surface. Why is it so? Because of that congestion in the spleen, and due to the splenomegaly happened, and that's why, that is the reason behind that why there is the congestive splenomegaly. Okay, and why we are calling that a cyanotic induration of spleen. So what happens is that when it actually having two important reasons why there is the congestive splenomegaly. What happens is that, first of all, this is not the acute condition. Okay, okay, so it is actually a chronic condition. So what happens is, whenever the person is having the right heart failure, for an example, if the person is having the right heart failure, you know, there is a chronic venous congestion. There is a chronic venous congestion of the spleen, which occurs due to either right heart failure, or it can be due to portal hypertension, or it can be due to liver cirrhosis. As there will be liver cirrhosis, there will be the portal hypertension due to the backflow of the blood into the portal vein, isn't it? So that's why that can lead to the congestion in the splenic vessels, right? Now if there will be the venous congestion of the spleen for a longer period of time, then obviously the spleen will be having the consequences. So spleen size will be getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it can have the cherry red spot. Okay, so look, let me make it very, very simpler. First of all, what are the conditions? Okay, so let's talk about that. So we are talking about over here is spleen. Average weight of the spleen is about 150 grams in males. Okay, I am talking about the average male. Okay, average weight. Okay, however it can vary. Fine. In this situation, if I will be talking about the cyanotic induration of spleen, cyanotic induration of spleen, the weight of the spleen can goes from 500 to 1000 grams. Okay, because of what? Splenomegaly. As I said, it is also called as what? Congestive splenomegaly. It is also called as what? Congestive splenomegaly. Right now, what I am saying, that either due to heart, okay, either due to heart failure, and mainly the right heart failure I am talking about, either due to right heart failure, either due to portal hypertension, right? What may happen? These two conditions may lead to large size of the spleen. Okay, these two conditions may lead to large size of the spleen, and this spleen, because of the chronic venous incontinence, you know, if this is the vessel, okay, it will be having very low blood supply. Okay, so chronic venous congestion will be there, will be present over there, and due to that, you know, red colored patches will be seen on the red colored patches here and there can be appreciated in the spleen. Okay, can be appreciated in the spleen while cutting the spleen. Okay, now however in the textbook it has been written that section surface can be seen as gray tan. Okay, it can be cherry red or it can be gray tan. In our question it was mentioned as cherry red spots. Cherry red spots. Okay, cherry red spots you will be studying in the ophthalmology also, for example in the CRO, right? But that's a different thing. So cherry red spots can be seen over here. Fine. So what are the examples you need to remember? First one is the right heart failure, second one is the portal hypertension. In our case, what happened? Now let's talk about that. Okay, in our case what happened is that they were talking about the MI and there was a progressive cardiovascular collapse. Due to that, this situation happened. Chronic venous congestion of spleen happened, congestive splenomegaly happened, and we are calling that as what? Cyanotic induration of spleen. Okay, why there is cyanotic induration of spleen? Because the spleen in the early stage, it is actually moderately enlarged, but in the long standing cases there is a progressive enlargement, and that may lead to the increase of the weight of the spleen. That may lead to from 500 to 1000 grams of the spleen, right? And organ will be deeply congested, it will be tense, it will be larger in size, cyanotic. So we are calling that as cyanotic induration of spleen, and because of this congestion we are giving the term as congestive splenomegaly. Okay, now enough about this discussion. Let's move on to the next one. That is a question number 24. Autopsy of a dead 86-year-old patient, 86-year-old woman who had cerebral atherosclerosis. Cerebral atherosclerosis has shown the atrophy of cerebral cortex. Name the atrophy by its cause. Okay, here I have attached the diagram for the same one so that you can clearly understand the situation. They were talking about the cerebral atherosclerosis. So in the vessels of one of the vessels of the cerebrum, there was a atherosclerosis. Now you know what is atherosclerosis. Very simple. There is some kind of plaque. There is some kind of cholesterol plaque or some kind of lipid plaque. You know, there is some kind of cholesterol plaque can be there, which actually stuck in the vessel and causing the atrophy. You know, atrophy of the cerebral cortex. Okay, so let's zoom over this diagram and you can easily appreciate. For example, this is the right common carotid artery. Okay, I'm talking about this artery over here. Let me mention, right, I'm talking about this artery. Let's say this is the right common carotid artery. Okay, and over here if you zoom in this portion, okay, come over here in this portion. Here, you know, with the yellow color you can appreciate that this is the plaque. Okay, this plaque I am talking about, this is the plaque. Okay, you can easily appreciate. So due to this plaque, the blood flow have to be compromised. If the blood flow will be compromised over here, in, you know, normally it looks like that. You can see this diagram over here. This is the normal blood flow. Okay, but what is actually happening over here? This plaque is causing the disruption of the blood flow, and due to that, here in this area the blood will not be able to reach properly. If the blood is not able to reach properly, this will cause the atrophy of this much portion. This will cause what? Atrophy, isn't it? So that will cause the atrophy definitely. So what is the reason? Because of the atherosclerosis, right? That is actually happening over here. Okay, so I hope you are clear what I am talking about. Okay, so that's what they were talking about. So what is the problem? Name the atrophy by its cause. What is the cause? Insufficiency of the blood supply, or you can say ischemia will be happening, right? So answer will be insufficiency of the blood supply. Okay, insufficiency of the blood supply. Fine. Let's talk about the next one. Autopsy of a dead 48-year-old man has a thrombus obturation on the middle cerebral artery lumen. Okay, so what they are saying, autopsy of this dead man shows the thrombus obturation, okay, of the middle cerebral arteries lumen. Now parieto-temporal part of the left hemisphere, they are talking about the left cerebral hemisphere, has a focus of gray papy consistence. That is important for us. What is the most possible region for such changes? Okay, fine. So here I have actually inserted one more diagram for the convenience of your understanding. So look, here there is some arteries. For example, this is the internal carotid artery, and they told you the blockage in which artery. They were talking about a thrombus obliteration in the middle cerebral artery, isn't it? Middle cerebral artery. Okay, so look, here are some of the internal, here is the internal carotid artery. This one I am talking about. Here is the internal carotid artery, and now it is actually continuing, and this one over here which you are seeing, this one over here, this is the middle cerebral artery, isn't it? Now over here you can see that there is a blood clot in the middle cerebral artery. There's a blood clot in the middle cerebral artery. What will happen again? You can see this area, this particular area is getting bluish. Why is it getting bluish? Because of the ischemia in that region, because some kind of thrombus actually is obliterating the pathway of this middle cerebral artery. The blood flow in the middle cerebral artery is getting obliterated due to this thrombus. What will happen? This particular area, this whole area will be having the ischemia, and further if the ischemia will be persisting for the longer duration of time, obviously that will lead to what? Necrosis, and we can call that as infarction, isn't it? Infarction. So that's what is happening in this particular question, right? So that is the situation. Fine. So I hope you got the point. So that's what they were asking in the question, that thrombus was obliterating the middle cerebral artery. So what will be the consequence over there? So that will be the consequence. Okay, so what will be the answer? There will be the necrosis, or there will be the infarction of that particular cerebral tissue. Okay, so answer will be infarction, right? Okay, now caseous necrosis they are talking about. Do not confuse, guys. If I am saying necrosis, that doesn't mean that can be caseous necrosis. Caseous necrosis will be seen in the lungs, as you know already, right? Caseous necrosis will be seen in the lungs, cheese-like reaction. Which kind of necrosis, by the way, can be seen in the brain? Okay, in the brain, remember please, in the brain you can see the liquefactive necrosis. If you remember from the class, I told you while the discussion of the necrosis, or you may watch the apoptosis necrosis video, brain is having the liquefactive necrosis. Important question in itself. Okay, fine. So this is the case of infarction. 26, let's talk about that. Autopsy has shown a cavity of irregular shape. Okay, irregular shape, 5 into 3.5 centimeter, that is the bigger one, and filled with red groomes and macerated cerebral tissue in the right hemisphere subcortex nuclei. So what pathology developed in this case? Actually they are talking about some kind of hematoma over there. Now how I came to know that they are talking about the hematoma? Because look, they are talking about the irregular shape, 5 into 3.5 centimeter. So what actually happened? Some kind of blood actually it actually made a clot, and it is actually causing the cerebral tissue damage over there. Okay, so as you can see that macerated cerebral tissue in the right hemisphere subcortex nuclei can be seen. So here I have inserted one image for you guys so that you can appreciate over here that what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this particular area which you can see on the screen right now, this one. Okay, so what is actually happening? Look, what is this? This is the left cerebral hemisphere. What is this? This is the right cerebral hemisphere, and in the right cerebral hemisphere we can see this situation. What is this? This is the hematoma. What is that? This is the hematoma. Fine. So that's what we are considering about. Okay, so this situation is hematoma. What actually happens? The blood is making a clot, and that is appearing in the subthalamic region of this right cerebral cortex. Fine. So that is the problem which can be appreciated over here. Okay, I hope you are clear about this one. Now let's talk about the next one. So what is the answer over here? That is the hematoma. Fine. Now let's move on to the next one, and let's talk about the 27 question. So in the 27 they are talking about 29-year-old man who had a multi-fragmental fracture. This unfortunate person had the fracture of the right femur on the third day after the trauma, complained of pain in the right half of the chest, heavy breathing. In a day he died because of the progressive heart respiratory failure, which means combined pulmonary and the cardiovascular system, they actually failed. Histologic examination detected pseudophilic orange drops in the pulmonary and cerebral vessels that completely close the lumens of microcirculatory vessels. What complication caused the death of man? Now look, you know, you must be surprising that multi-fragmental fracture was there. Fracture was in the right femur. How this person may land up in that situation, because look, the femur fracture was there, and if the doctor will be healing the fracture, he should be fine actually, right? So look what actually happens. This is the case of embolism. So we should study the embolism over here. We are having some kind of embolism. Let's talk about that. But before that, let me make an idea in your minds what is happening in this particular situation. So look, what happened is there was a femur fracture. When the bone actually broken down, okay, some kind of embolus from the femur, it came into the hematogenous circulation, it came into the systemic circulation. With the help of blood circulation, it went into the pulmonary circulation, and then it causes the dyspnea like symptoms. For an example, here what they said, after the fracture of the right femur, there was a pain in the right half of the chest. Why is it so? Because of this embolism. Which kind of embolism? That was fat embolism. What kind of embolism I'm talking about? That was fat embolism. Fat embolism are classically seen in the bone fractures. Okay, in the bone fractures. If they are mentioning about the fractures, definitely which type of embolism will be seen? That will be the fat embolism, right? Now, heavy breathing because of that component. Progressive heart respiratory failure. Why? Because the lungs are not getting proper amount of blood supply, so the heart will stop eventually, and the person may land up into the death situation. Okay, so very severe situation. So what is the answer over here? That will be the fat embolism. Now let me talk about some of the embolism types, okay, because that is important. Sometimes they ask you the types of the embolism, which kind of embolism can be seen, right? So what are the types of the embolism? Let's talk about that. Okay, fine. So let's talk about the embolism over here. Okay, first of all, what is embolism? Embolism is some kind of some amount of mass. For an example, some amount of some kind of thrombus was there, which was obliterating the vessel. It detached from the wall of the blood vessel and circulates in the blood vessel, okay, from there, and now it can actually obliterate any kind of blood vessel, right? So that is a thromboembolism. Okay, so embolism is having three types basically. And what are these three types? Let's look over them. Okay, so one is the solid, okay, another one is the liquid, and the other one is the gaseous. Okay, so solid, liquid, and gaseous. Now let's talk about the examples over here. In the solid one, there is thromboembolism. You must have heard about that. Just now we talked about this. Thromboembolism is an example of solid embolus, right? Now after that we are having a thyroembolism. Okay, you may note down these things in your notebook. Then bacterial embolism, some amount of bacteria cause the embolus, bacteria embolism. Embolism by some parasites, embolism by some foreign bodies embolism. Okay, foreign bodies embolism, right? Then there can be some kind of tissue embolism. For example, cellular embolism, due to necrosis of some tumor and due to some damaged tissue, there can be the tissue embolism. Okay, so there can be tissue embolism also, which should be considering in the classification of solid embolus. Okay, in the liquid one, what I can write? In the liquid one, you can add the fat embolism. Just now I told you, due to the fractures. And there can be the amniotic fluid embolism, in which if the fetus is in the womb of the mother, okay, that condition sometimes amniotic fluid embolism can be seen in the fetus. In the gaseous embolism, there is a classical example. There is a classical example of the air embolism. First of all, air embolism, which is quite common, right? Then very important, that is the decompression disease. Okay, and that can be asked in the MCQs. Decompression disease, we are also calling that as Caisson disease. Okay, why I'm telling you that is important? Because sometimes they ask you the MCQs, because it is not ending with the embolism, right? So we might get some confusion that whether it is having the embolism classification or not. So by the way, it is including the gaseous embolism, right? So decompression disease. Okay, so that is the classification of the embolus, you can say. Now moving back to our question, they were saying about that there was the fracture and then dyspnea situation was happened. So that is the thing. Okay, so once again, a very short, in very short, I would like to describe over here that what actually happened. There was a fracture. Okay, then there was dyspnea in the patient due to that embolus. Then there is the heart failure situation kind of thing, right? And then there was the death of the patient. Okay, who was responsible due to this fracture? Okay, what actually happened? The villain was embolus. And whole this process, who was the villain? That was embolus. He was the culprit. Okay, that caused the fat embolism. Next question is, during a histological examination of a pilot who died after depressurization, very important, depressurization of a plane cabin, there was detected a great amount of vesicles in the vessels of the internal organs, fatty hepatocytes, and multiple small ischemic gray softened focuses in the cerebrum and spinal cord. Select the most possible reason for such changes. So what example they're talking about? Look, very important thing is depressurization, and I hope you got my point. What I'm talking about? I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the decompression disease over here, decompression sickness over here. Okay, so what is this example? I'm talking about which example? I'm talking about decompression sickness. I'm talking about what? I'm talking about decompression sickness. Decompression sickness. There are some other names also for the decompression sickness. Okay, for an example, we are calling that as Chiasson disease. Okay, decompression disease, we are calling that as Chiasson disease. What else we can call that as? We can call that as diverse palsy. Diverse palsy, because that can be seen in the diverse. We can call that as aeroembolism. Aero means air. Okay, arrow means air, so aeroembolism, right? So these are some other names for this decompression sickness. Just now I told you in the previous one, while discussing the previous question, decompression sickness is an example of which embolus? That is the gaseous embolism. Which example? Gaseous embolism. Okay, so this is an example of gaseous embolism. So they were talking about what? Depressurization of an plane cabin. So that means they are talking about what? Aeroembolism. They are talking about aeroembolism, also called as what? Decompression sickness. They are talking about decompression sickness. Comes into which category? Gaseous embolism. So what will be the answer? It will be the gaseous embolism. Okay, so guys, that was the discussion about the circulatory disturbance. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the session. If you did, then please hit the like button, make sure to subscribe the channel, share among your friends, and I will see you in my next one. Thank you very much. Bye.